You know, if you've ever been to South Africa, you have definitely seen them. Those white minibus taxis zipping through traffic, they're just part of the urban soundtrack. But this isn't just a story about getting from point A to point B. Oh, no. This is a story about struggle, about survival, about fierce entrepreneurship, and, yeah, about violent conflict. It's a story that was born from the very design of apartheid. So today we're going to unpack the wild, incredible story of South Africa's minibus taxi industry.
First, let's just start with a number to give you a sense of scale. 15 million. Just let that sink in for a second. That's the number of South Africans who depend on the taxi industry for their daily commute. It's not just a part of the transport system. For most people, it is the transport system.
So how did it all get started? Well, it wasn't cooked up in some boardroom with business plans and spreadsheets. Nope. This whole industry's roots go deep into the toxic soil of apartheid. It was a raw, unfiltered survival response to a system that used what's called brutal spatial planning to push Black communities as far away as possible from the cities, from the jobs, from the economy.
And this is exactly why the state's own transport system was a total failure for Black communities. I mean, just look at this. The fares were way too expensive. The routes didn't even go where people needed them to. Imagine living in a sprawling township and the nearest bus stop is miles away. And get this, the services would often stop running before people even finished their late-night shifts. It created this huge, impossible gap between where people were forced to live and where they desperately needed to work.
And right into that gap, into that vacuum, stepped Black entrepreneurs. I mean, think about it. Under apartheid, this was one of the very few ways to build any kind of wealth. They saw a critical need, and against all the odds, they built a solution from the ground up, providing a service that the state simply refused to.
And here's how it all unfolded. It started small, in the late 70s, with regular sedan cars. And they used this brilliant little loophole in the law. If you left one seat empty, you weren't technically a taxi. So they did. By the early 80s, they upgraded to the combis, those iconic minibuses we know today. Still totally illegal, but they were everywhere. By 1981, they'd organized into a powerful group called SAPTA. And then finally, in 1987, the government gave in and made the whole thing official.
This quote from the government's own Director General of Transport really says it all. You can almost hear the reluctance, can't you? The state was finally being forced to admit that this massive grassroots industry wasn't going anywhere. It had earned its place in the sun. But becoming legal was a double-edged sword. That 1987 deregulation, which was supposed to create healthy competition, instead just ripped the lid off. With zero controls, no official routes, and no regulations to speak of, the industry just exploded. It became a violent, bloody battle for turf. It really was a gift and a curse.
And the most tragic part of this? The industry itself saw it coming. SABTA, their own association, went to the government and warned them. They said, and I quote, that this would result in chaos. They were completely ignored, and the consequences, well, they were absolutely devastating.
So in this power vacuum, these new, shadowy organizations started to pop up. They were called mother bodies. Think of them as massive regional taxi cartels. They seized control of the most profitable routes, and they ruled through fear, through extortion, and through brutal violence. They became the generals in the taxi wars.
And the human cost, it's just staggering. Throughout the 1990s, more than 2,000 people were killed in taxi-related violence. This wasn't just some business dispute. This was an actual war, fought on the streets every single day, with drivers, owners, and innocent commuters caught in the crossfire.
Okay, so fast forward to 1994. Apartheid is over. South Africa has a new democratic government. And one of the first, most urgent crises they have to deal with is this out-of-control, violent taxi industry. They had to do something.
So they came up with a two-part plan. Step one, in 1995, was to create a task force to figure out what on earth was going on. And their main recommendation? Bring back regulations and fast. Step two, in 1999, was much more ambitious, the Taxi Recapitalization Program. The idea was to completely rebuild the industry by getting rid of all the old, unsafe taxis.
Now, on paper, the plan looked pretty good, but the reality on the ground? A completely different story. The goal was to replace old, dangerous vehicles, but somehow, many of those scrapped taxis just magically reappeared on the roads. They wanted to formalize the industry, but that was met with violent resistance.
And the new safer taxis were more expensive, which meant higher fares, and that just sparked more conflict with illegal operators. The whole program has just been bogged down for decades.
And that brings us to today. Because despite all this, the violent history, the failed government programs, the taxi industry is still, without a doubt, an essential pillar of the South African economy. But its journey toward becoming a formal, safe industry, well, that journey is far from over.
I mean, just look at this. It's not even close. Taxis have a 65% share of the entire commuter market. 65%. They move more people than all the buses and all the trains in the country combined. It's not just a big player, it's practically the only game in town.
And the numbers behind it are just wow. 15 million commuters a day, 600,000 jobs, an estimated 90 billion rands in revenue every year. But here it is, the most important, most mind-boggling number on this entire list. Look at the bottom. Government subsidy, 0. A big fat 0. This whole massive essential industry runs without a single cent of funding from the state. So what's next? Well, there's a new idea on the table, and this time it's not another government plan. It's an industry-led initiative called Wealth on Wheels, or WOW. And the goal is to use technology to finally solve these decades-old problems.
And here's what they're trying to do. They're bringing in digital payments so drivers aren't carrying huge amounts of cash. They're using GPS so owners can actually track their fleets, onboard cameras for safety, Wi-Fi for commuters. It's a whole tech-based overhaul, trying to bring transparency and formal rules to a world that has been all about cash and informality for its entire existence.
And that really is the big final question, isn't it? After all the violence, all the failed policies, all the resistance, can an app, can a GPS tracker, can a digital payment system finally succeed where an entire government couldn't? Can technology finally bring peace to an industry that was born and has always been defined by struggle,